but at the point of finally being frustrated, like my last visit, I think in January to the doctor, he recommended that maybe I look at getting a boot or something that would
Mm.
just, you know, basically um, stabilize the tendon. And so I looked at that option, and I'm like, and I was getting it was a bit of a pain. It was a little bit of a headache just trying to find the person that was going to do it. And so it never really materialized. And finally, through my frustration, I'm like, there's got to be something better. I can't, like, this is going on. I've been injured for like almost 9 months now, and still am in the same spot. Yeah, it's not as sore maybe, but it bloody well hurts. I can't run on it. So I honestly, sometimes Google does the most amazing things. So I think I Googled running for tendon injuries or something along those lines. And
Right.
Matt Boyd, physiotherapist, popped up, and so I think that's kind of how we got our start. That's how once we made that inquiry and you got some general information from me, I think you were pretty confident you could help me. So
Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Adaptive Zone podcast. My name is Matthew Boyd. I'm a physiotherapist and running coach. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're so inclined, share it with a friend. Today, we're going to be taking a slightly different approach, and I'm going to be talking with Mike. He's one of my clients who came to see me a couple of years back with an Achilles tendon problem. And he's going to be talking us through his journey through rehabilitation and then eventually back to running and how it all went. And it's really quite, what's the word? Enlightening, right? So you work with people from one end, and I see him in snippets, but then to get the full story from his perspective was really helpful for me. And the idea with this episode was to try and maybe give a little bit of optimism if you're having trouble with injuries or other problems with your running, and maybe encourage you to, if it's not going the way you want, to seek out a second opinion, to maybe try some other stuff, just to give you a glimpse into how rehab works when it's going well. Obviously, it always doesn't go perfectly, but there's always worth talking to, other people. And to that end, if you are interested or are you having problems with any, specific injury, or your training is not going as well as you like, I'm always here to answer questions. So if you want to shoot me an email, mboydphysio@gmail.com. I do free discovery calls with people, so you can go to my website and just book yourself in for a discovery call and we can have a chat. And if we think that I might be able to help you either with getting back to running after your injury, coming into the clinic if you're local, working online to do coaching, that kind of thing. As you know, on this podcast, I don't, push my service endlessly, but, I am here if you would like some assistance. So please do reach out if you think I can help you. Anyway, that's enough out of me. So let's get into it. So, Mike Morton, welcome to the Adaptive Zone podcast.
thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me to be part of it today.
So could you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm 48 years old. I'm married. I have three girls, one who's on her own, one's in college, one's here still at home. She's going to be 15 next week. My permanent residence is Stettler, Alberta here, and I do work up away from Stettler here. I work in Onaway at Lac St. Anne County, and I spend my weeks up there. I am a chartered professional accountant, and I'm the general manager of corporate services over at the county I'm employed at. So it's a little bit about myself. During COVID, I did have the opportunity to work from home a lot more in sort of a hybrid model. So I was able to spend more time at home. But when I'm away on away, I get the opportunity to work on some training and focus on my training and health. So that's kind of the good part about being away.
Okay, so how long have you been running for?
Um, so I've been running for about 5 years now, and at various stages of running. I really just started, um, from scratch, I guess you could say.
Hmm. And what led you to take up running? Why did you decide to start?
Yeah, so I guess my history is that I've always been athletic. I played when I was young. I also did well in track and field, and I didn't mind running when I was really young. But my focus was really hockey, baseball, volleyball. But I played a lot of hockey when I was young, so I was very athletic. So I kept myself in relatively good shape till I was about 20. Um, then I, kind of just like everybody, kind of transition into adulthood. And during my 20s and 30s, I played like beer league stuff, like hockey, baseball, but I didn't really care for any of that too much. I was always considered myself fairly competitive, so that just didn't really do it for me. Then I got into my 30s, and same thing, early 30s, and then I just completely quit all kind of sports and activities, and really, and then I was really raising my kids at that point, and focused on their activities, and focus on them, and focus on my career, I guess you could say. But I put everything off to the side. I really neglected my physical health. I, I didn't look after myself very well. And by the time I got into my 40s, I was like completely a different person. Like basically um, was really out of shape. I was really kind of at a loss. Even my physical, my mental health weren't very good. So it was during, I think it was when I, nearing my, or just after my 45th birthday, when I stepped on the scale and said, God, like I looked in the mirror and said, who is this person? And
Right.
then my journey really began. I wasn't really sure really what I wanted to do. So I just started by walking and just kind of, and I also really importantly was looking after my diet and really changing my health and wellness and my physical style and well-being. And so I just kind of, so I started by walking, and then and then introduced myself to slow running, slow jogging, incrementally building myself up. And then the weight started coming right off. I was like, wow, this is happening. And all of a sudden I can run faster. I can see mega progress in a short period of time, um, for the first 6 months. So really, then I began able to starting to set some other goals in terms of where I wanted to go with my running. And I by this time now, I'm already thinking, geez, maybe I could do a half marathon. So this was in 2018. I began and I started really training, and I'm really on my own kind of, and just doing my own thing. And then so I set my first goal of my first half marathon in Edmonton in 2018, and I did relatively well during that my first marathon. I was really happy that to get where I had gotten. I think it was below I had originally set my original goal as to like a 2 minute, 2 hour half marathon. But while I was training, my results were getting so much better. So I kept revising my training goal, and then next thing you know, it was 145, and then it was 140, and I ended up completing it in 137.
Mm.
So I was really pleased with that, and I knew that, and that put me in a good bracket in age, in my age range, and in my overall performance. That I thought, what, my percentages, I think I can do this. Like if I really try harder, I can probably even get better. So just my self motivation just kept pushing me along. So that was really where I started the journey of running.
So, what was the difference? So, you were, in your 30s and early 40s, and then something obviously clicked. You said you stepped on the scale and you had this sort of moment where you've changed. Like, what changed? What drove that change?
Well, I think it was mainly that I, wanted to be better for myself. I wanted to just be healthier. I wanted to, you know, as we get older, we want to make sure that we look after ourselves so we can live longer.
Mm,
Ultimately, I think, and I think that kind of was the first thing, is it's the reality that, what, I can't, if I'm going to continue down this path, how old am I going to be? Am I going to be around to see my kids? Am I, want to be able to see special milestones and things like that? So I think it's just my own motivation to get healthier, to get fit, and just to start that path. But the reality is that I didn't, want to live unhealthy anymore. And I think that was the reality. That was the thing that just one day that kind of clicked in my head, is that,
mm.
what, like, I'm just not, if this isn't healthy, and what, I'm not going to be around if I keep living this lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I always ask runners, like every runner I work with in the clinic, I always ask them like why they run. And it's always some variation of that. It's like physical and mental health. And basically running is a means to an end. It's a way of seeing your kids grow up or staying active and healthy so that you can live longer or just retain your independence and not become fragile, overweight, weak, that kind of stuff. It's a means to other things. And then we set these little milestone goals of, I want to do a half marathon, like you said. But that really isn't the goal. That's just a milestone. The real goal is that long term mental and physical health that we want, you know. And I think that sounds very familiar to my own interest in running and certainly what my clients say all the time. I think this is a very common story that you get the kids, the career, that 30-year-old bracket, right? 30 to 40, life gets like crazy busy. I'm feeling that at the minute. I started a bit later, as you know, with my son's young, right? So he's only like 10 months. But I can really feel the pressure or the challenge of keeping my own physical and mental health, right? Because it has to come second. And I only have one, right? So you had two or three, and you had some work stress on top of that and some other challenges. And then you start to, where do I make the time for running or other exercise? So I think this is a very familiar challenge. And obviously, you did the half marathon, you did really well. So you must be very pleased. And at some point, things start to go wrong. So tell us about that. What happened?
Yeah. So in 2018, the end of 2018, I was said, what, I can do this. I can be better. So I started training really hard for the Calgary half in May of 2019. And so I really pushed myself hard, and I was really focused. I was really like going in without reckless abandon, I guess you could say, just pushing harder, pushing harder, pushing harder, just going faster, running that treadmill faster, like just pushing and pushing and pushing. And so without any proper training or consultation, you know, I, I went into that half marathon, and I kicked butt. Ran my personal best of 133, which placed me really high up and in my age group, and overall, I think I broke into the top 100. I thought that was,
Mm,
out of mega runners, I thought that was pretty good. But it came with, I think, with a bit of a cost, because there was no long term strategy behind it. It was just like go go go, and felt like I could keep doing that. I could keep running like that and just reckless abandon and keep knocking off time. Well, so I started, and after the race, I was really happy with it. But then a couple things happened in my life, and my job situation changed, and I had a passing of my sister through an accident, and so I was kind of
mm,
thrown off a little bit for a couple months, just kind of trying to find myself and find what my new normal looked like. And of course, I was working. My job ended up taking me out of town, so so it was really, I was really trying to refine myself during that period of time. And then, nearing the end of the year, I kind of started really working hard again. I thought, well, you know what, I'm gonna try for the Edmonton Marathon the following year, because I kind of missed my window for the Calgary one in for training in 2020. Well, we know what happened in March of 2020. That's when COVID hit, and so I was training, everything was going okay, and then my mom passed away as well. So just another wrinkle into to my life that really, running got me through it. I would say though, which was
Mm.
really important, but it got me. It wasn't really focused on training. It wasn't really on for any specific event. And again, I was just kind of running just because, and it was just for my mental health. And I'm always forever grateful for that being there during those difficult times, and then during COVID. But with it though, I started. It was probably the summer of that year when it started to break down. So finally, after not training properly, or well, training but not really with a plan in mind, I guess you could say, or an end means, and just kind of doing my own thing. I started having some Achilles tendon soreness, I guess you could say, in July of that year. And in typical form, like most of us, we try to fight through it, and that's exactly what I did. I tried to fight through it to the point where I could, in near the end of July, I guess it was, I could barely even walk on it. So I
Mm.
knew that there was a problem. It was time to shut down, and with my stubbornness, I decided to go see a doctor. And so things really took another big change in my running life after that point.
So you went to see the doctor with the Achilles pain, and then what happened after that? What was your understanding of what the problem was and how it was to be fixed?
Yeah, so the doctor said, of course, the tendon was major inflamed, and like you could literally visually see it, how it was like twice the size of what my left tendon was looking like, and so with that, he basically had suggested that obviously, like a lot of doctors would recommend that I stay off it for a while and just ice it. And he gave me some topical kind of cream or ointment to put on it for kind of like numbing it. I think there were some anti-inflammatory pills that I was taking for a while, and so just kind of, and basically the message was stay off it. Well, I could barely walk on it anyway at that time through the month of August, and so I just kind of stuck to the program. What the doctor said, of course, complete rest was there was no more training at that point.
And how long did you stop training for?
So I was probably around, I would say October, November when I finally was. Well, by then I'd already started walking on it again, and it was feeling okay. Like it was just started. It had started to, feel better and whatnot. Kind of allowed me to kind of think about wanting to go back to running again. So I thought I was in a good enough spot where I think it was again. I think it was November of 2020 when I tried to go back to running again and just to try to get back and to some sort of exercise routine. And I had probably run for a couple more weeks before I had to shut it down again. It was not ready. It was same problem. I don't think it was quite as sore as it was, but it was pretty sore. So November, I had again had to shut it down, and through Christmas and everything, I did, just kind of stayed off it. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I went back to the doctor, and he sent me out for an ultrasound to kind of take a look at it and confirmed what the diagnosis was for
Mm-hmm.
the tendon. So it just confirmed what they already knew, but at that point, no, there was not really any treatment that was working at that time either. So
Okay. So at that point, it's been, did you say July until November? You'd already rested it and then tried again. And I guess 4 months rest wasn't enough or whatever it was. And
yeah.
um, it flared up again, right? So
Mhm.
then you had to stop running again. And then when did we first meet? Do you remember? And how that, can you share with the listeners exactly what happened there?
Yeah, sure do. I remember that very well. But at the point of finally being frustrated, like my last visit, I think in January to the doctor, he recommended that maybe I look at getting a boot or something that would
Mm.
just, you know, basically um, stabilize the tendon. And so I looked at that option, and I'm like, and I was getting it was a bit of a pain. It was a little bit of a headache just trying to find the person that was going to do it. And so it never really materialized. And finally, through my frustration, I'm like, there's got to be something better. I can't, like, this is going on. I've been injured for like almost 9 months now, and still am in the same spot. Yeah, it's not as sore maybe, but it bloody well hurts. I can't run on it. So I honestly, sometimes Google does the most amazing things. So I think I Googled running for tendon injuries or something along those lines. And
Right.
Matt Boyd, physiotherapist, popped up. So it's kind of the first Google hit, I guess you could say, that I looked at, and I'm like, okay, Red Deer. He had it out of town. It wasn't a familiar area code that I was familiar with, but so I didn't really know. But it was coming up out of Red Deer, so I think you had maybe there was a link through one of those general inquiry type where you kind of touch base with the the, the with a portal, I guess you could say, a business portal. And so I left my name, some of my specifics, my name, my number, all that kind of stuff, how long I've been running, my injuries, and so forth. And didn't really think too much of it. And I think it was probably maybe 2 or 3 days later, I got this call from a gentleman named Matthew Boyd, and so I think that's kind of how we got our start. That's how once we made that inquiry and you got some general information from me, I think you were pretty confident you could help me. So
So, it's always interesting when you sort of look back on this stuff. I know what I think happened and what I think I said, but it'd be interesting because I'd like to know, after talking with me and then coming to see me, what did you understand the problem to be at that point?
yeah, I was trying to think of the best way to explain it, but I would say that in my mind, I was of the view that it was being overused and overtaxed. The tendon, it was a running injury as a result of overuse and not and really not really looking after it the proper way. Maybe I wasn't really sure because the doctor that I was seeing, I was consulting with, didn't really have, I think he looked at it from just a very generic sense, I guess you could say, in terms of like an average person going in, and maybe not from a running or athletic point of view of what that injury really meant and what it really looked like. So I think the treatment is what a normal person he would give a normal person, and
Mm-hmm.
and then for a normal person, you just tell them to stay off it, and at some point, if they're not really you know too active or whatever, it's going to heal. It could heal itself. And so I think it was proven that that wasn't the best treatment when I tried to go back running in November for that brief period of time. It really probably validated what was really that there was more underlying concerns to it. So I really wasn't sure what I was getting these two different messages, right? So,
Mm.
um, so I think that's what kind of when we kind of started working together, it was sort of you kind of give it a better understanding from the athlete's point of view because you had been dealing with that a lot, and so you understood the right treatment to or what you thought was the right treatment to go about it, right? So
So you had essentially been trying to rest it better, right? It's inflamed. I need to rest it. It'll get better. But I don't know what we are now, 7, 8 months later, and you still can't run on it. How many more months of rest are we going to give this before we just realize that that's not addressing the issue? So, what did we do after that? What's your recollection of the early treatment? Because I know this is a while back now, but how do you remember it?
yeah, so yeah, right away, I think what you had anticipated was that this type of injury needed actually. some exercise in moderation, in the right rebuilding of what the tendon needed. So although painful, I believe we started with some very incremental type of exercises, some calf raises, some hopping, those type of things to sort of get the tendon working again, even though it was painful. You started the program in a small enough dose where it wouldn't cause more injury. It was more of a sort of a controlled, sort of modified exercise program, I guess you could say, with respect to anything. I would say the knee below, right, all the calf area and into the tendon areas, into the foot. So that was sort of my first memory of what we were trying to do. Now it caused a bit of pain, but one thing was what was interesting about your program was that you always had me do the check-ins about the degree of how much pain it would be and how much measurements there would be. So there was some quantified measurements that we were dealing with in terms of setting up the next week and setting up the next week and so forth, so that we knew that, you've put the program together so that it was sort of incrementally, and sure enough, almost after a month's time, I was already noticing a difference, both with the strength, but but also the number of reps they could do, but also just the soreness was starting to go away. So from maybe when I first got in, I was at a soreness of 7 or 8 out of a maximum of soreness out of 10. By then, by the first month, I was maybe down to a 5 or 6, right? So it was the pain was starting to go away as well during those early stages of just, I would call it just tendon rehabilitation at that time, and wasn't obviously not really focused on anything running. We just wanted to get this thing, stronger and healing, right? So I think your approach to it was that it needed some type of work. It couldn't rest wasn't the right type of treatment for this injury.
Yes, and this is very true of, I would say, most running injuries. There are exceptions to all rules, but most of the time running injuries are repetitive stress injuries, and complete rest is only ever a short-term strategy to let things settle down, maybe a week or two. But then you've got to figure out how you're going to build it back up to be able to tolerate the type of stresses that we need it to tolerate if you're going to run on it. But you said something quite revealing there. You said we weren't even really running at that stage, but yet you had been willing to put in a month's worth of work exercising. I didn't do anything like physically to you because tendon problems, apart from shockwave, which helps a bit, but it's more of a nice to have, not a need to have. The real thing that helps is adaptation, right? It's putting stress through the tendon that is the right quantity, the right type, the right frequency, and then being consistent with it. I don't know if I had you doing exercises every day or every second day, I can't remember, but you did it for a month before you start, you're like, oh, it's feeling better now, right? So, and I think that's a key message for anyone listening who's having particularly tendon problems, but any running problem, is that sometimes you have to put in quite a lot of work to really start to see the payoff, and that can be challenging, right? I get people who I work with sometimes, and they just kind of fall off the wagon, right? I've been through that. It's going to take a month or two, but understanding it here and sort of understanding it here is different, So I think kudos to you for that first month, sort of being willing to put that work in without seeing any immediate payoff, because tendons are one of the things that you literally can't make them feel better at all in the short term, apart from like just not doing anything with them.
Yeah, and I would say that I think I would say I put my trust in you right off the bat, and then I also believed that I had a my a long term plan in place that I really wanted to get back to running again, right? So I think with your belief and you instilled the right program and started seeing benefits right off the bat, well, within the first month, that really helped to help me mentally to be able to go through those challenges.
So we start to see a little improvement, right? You can do more reps of the exercises, the tendon doesn't hurt quite so much. And at some point, we must have started to bring in the running. Can you tell me what you recall of that process and how it went?
Yeah, you bet. So it didn't actually take too long. it actually didn't take too long before we started introducing the running, but it was really short, and it was really focused on developing muscle strength again. It was a muscle
Was it
leg
3 minutes? Like run for three
yeah,
minutes? Yeah,
run for
everybody
three
hates that.
minutes exactly, yeah, that's right. Just really starting to focus on just incremental running back into the program, and really developing a disciplined approach to a new program. Like so it was probably, I'm thinking it was June of that year, maybe late May, where we started introducing some running. I believe maybe it was middle of May, if I'd have to go back to my records, but um, it was somewhere in there where we decided that this was, that we can try this because we're seeing such great improvement to the tendon. But it was, again, controlled. It was the way the program was set up, so it wasn't always taxing to the tendon. There was some strength training and some running training that would definitely keep that all built back up. And then, like I said, just about on a weekly basis, would be introducing a little bit more. And then somewhere around the point of middle of June to end of June, I'm going to say I'd set the target for maybe potentially doing a race. And it was still COVID during the time, and there was no really any marathons going on or whatever. And you're doing virtual marathons and things like that. I'm like, I just want to get back into. I need a goal to kind of get this back, because I'm feeling so darn good right now that I just feel like I can, just try to put my name back in and something to push for. And if the training takes a bit of a setback, and or if I have a little bit of an injury setback, then we'll just deal with it. But if we do this right, and I trust the process and believe in the program you had built, then we should be okay. And if I follow the instructions, then that's what I think we can probably pull this off. So we set our target for the end of September of last year, so that was 2021, and it was the Calgary Half Marathon, and it was in person, although it was strange because we were all wearing masks and stuff at the starting line and stuff. But anyway, by that time, the program had developed me into such a point where, my fitness was already starting to. I had started to improve quite dramatically. I really and we controlled the way we pushed, so it wasn't like we you just let me go and you set up a program that we would say, okay, well, let's go for a personal best time. I think when we set our time, I think it was maybe an hour and 45 minutes, which was really quite reasonable given where my injury had been and where I was at, 6 months to a year and a nine or year and 3 months before. And so, with that in mind, we just kind of focused on getting my fitness back into shape, making sure I'm not getting injured, and see if it works and we can finish the race. And sure enough, I mean, I finished at an hour and 38 minutes, and probably as proud of a race of any of the three that I had done at that point. Just to be able to finish it, accomplish it, and with the injury that I had just gone through. So I think that was a great accomplishment for us.
Yeah, definitely. It was. I remember talking to you. I think the morning of or the night before, kind of thing, on the phone, and just hearing how excited you were. And it was. It's always nice that because you don't often get to see your clients move all the way to the end like that. They'll usually kind of crack on their own at some point. But what we'd been doing was trying to build your running volume up to the point where you could do a half marathon and control the hill sessions and the sprint sessions so they didn't flare the tendon up. So I was sort of working with you a bit longer than I usually get to. So it was really nice to see you sort of get back to. It was almost that kind of, okay, yeah, that chapter of my life is done now. I'm back to running, and now it's about my running goals again, instead of just the goal being be able to run without my Achilles absolutely killing me.
Yeah, that was exactly right. And you always kept it in perspective, because I think one thing I was doing was I was trying to do a little bit too much, and I was trying to prepare my mental state of saying, okay, well, you know what, I should be able to beat that 133 personal best time. and really just, you were able to control my expectations too, which was really huge because at the end of the day, it was like, you know what, you're actually being able to run. Like 3 months ago, you could barely, or 4 months ago, you could barely walk, so let's keep this in perspective, right? So I think that was really good as well.
This has become a running theme for us, Mike, for the last 2 years.
Yeah, right.
So
Get down in your
okay,
zone.
so
Yeah.
what happened after that? Because so you did the half marathon. You're obviously very pleased, and then you were sort of thinking about your next goal. So walk us through right through to the spring.
So yeah, I mean, it took a little bit of time off after the race, and just to kind of reset a little bit because I've been working pretty darn hard. And then somewhere in October, early October, I would say we started to put a little bit of a program together, just kind of a maintenance program. So I didn't want to fall back to where I was in any of that point when I was injured. So I wanted to keep some fitness up. And then I think it was near the end of October, early November, we had decided we needed to set goals. So working with you again and seeing where I was at. And I think, my ultimate goal was to hit a marathon by the time I was 50, but it maybe, maybe the way things are progressing, I can move it up a year. So I think together we decided it might be a good idea to try a marathon, and then so we actually set two goals for this year. It was a marathon and a half marathon, but we weren't sure which order we were going to go in. It wasn't long after that we decided. I said I'm going to go for the full marathon in the spring. I'm going to train my butt off in the winter, and we're gonna do this. And so I will say that I had taken a break in December. I just kind of needed a little bit of a reset, and with Christmas and everything, and I had my daughter coming in, so it was a little, the training was a little bit secondary at that point, I will admit. But when we got back into the new year, Matt, we called up and said, I'm ready for this now again. And so we reset the goals and, set the training program in January, and for what it was look like for the next few months up until the May marathon, the Woodies Marathon in Red Deer. So we kind of looked ahead for the 4 months and kind of said, okay, well, this is a bit of a different animal though. And I will profess that, what, I'm like in my own mind, I'm thinking a half marathon, I can do the full marathon. I'm sure I can do this. Like, okay, you know, but I think that the training strategy, was very different. And I was thankful for you to be there to be able to guide that, because like I wouldn't have been able to get to that point without any good coaching and guidance and a proper training program. Because again, I think part of it was you were looking at it, making sure I didn't get a relapse, or my injury relapsed or reoccurred again. So part of it was in your mind. I know you don't want to cause any of my training to result in any injury again, but yet at the same time we needed to increase volumes. We needed to, do the right um, cardio, the right cardio training, the right aerobic training. So we had to establish that base. So volumes had to increase. I had to do it the right way. And so, and part of it, and I needed to be coached because I was training. At first I was trying to train like I was training for a half marathon. Well, that didn't work very well. So I had to, really focus my training on what you were saying, and follow what the program was. But it took a while to get that figured out. But at the end of the day, I mean, that was kind of the goal. Once I established our goals, then in May, then it was time to get ready, and the hard work training through January through April was really the program you put forth.
Winter training is always fun.
Yeah, winter training, treadmill training, like there's a whole
Treadmill
bunch of
training.
things that, yeah, treadmill training.
Yeah, it's
Right.
funny. It reminded me because I'd forgotten about this, but a lot of working with injured runners, which is obviously my interest, is training planning, right? So over the years, I've all I think you did this actually. You showed me your half marathon training plan for Calgary after you decided you were feeling ready to do it, and I remember thinking, no, this is going to make his Achilles worse. Like this, and this is what I always do. So I was like, okay, I got my little spreadsheet out, and I wrote out the weeks, and I wrote out the runs, and And I remember sharing that with you and then trying to explain to you what the hell all this nonsense on the spreadsheet meant. And then, so you did the half marathon, and then October, like you said, you were like, oh, I want to do the full. I was like, okay, great. And then, but we were talking about maybe doing some coaching because I got so used to training, doing your training programming. And but I wasn't a certified coach at that point, so I was like, okay, I'll do my coaching certification. I've thought about it for a long time, and I'd like to do it, and it'll be really helpful for my injured runners that I work with. So October, after I spoke with you, I started looking into it, what certification I was going to do, and then I started one, and like 4 days later, we had our baby, like 3 weeks early, and I just remember trying to study for that thing, like holding the newborn at like some ridiculous hour of the morning, trying to finish this thing, and just thinking, why now? Like of all all the time I could have started this certification, I've chosen right now, and the baby was born like 3 days later. So that was quite a funny one, but it was, a big part of me deciding to take on the coaching side of things was, working with you. I was like, okay, well, I can help people more if I can control the return to running a little bit more specifically, and that meant for our for the training for Woodies in the spring, I didn't have to go with the spreadsheets. I got some proper coaching software, and I had a proper training plan created for you so that you could put it on your watch and stuff like that. So it got a little more professional. But I don't know if I ever told you that all happened around the same time that Lachlan was born, and it was a very, very stressful few weeks.
Well, you handled it very well. I didn't know. I didn't even notice, to be honest. I didn't even know there was any issues with training software and stuff. I really liked it, though. Obviously, that those metrics and things that you introduced there were really huge in terms of my overall training. Helped a lot.
So tell us how it went in the spring. So you were lining up for your first marathon. How did that go?
Well, I had some pretty lofty expectations again, and I think I had um, set a time early. I think in our training process of shooting for 3:45 or 3:50 marathon time, and
I seem to remember you suggesting faster than that as well. I just sort of
maybe
took you down incrementally. I
yeah.
think it started in the 3:30s, and I was like gradually persuading you to lower
Well,
your I don't know if expectations is the word, but your targets. Like I said, it's become a
well,
recurring theme.
yeah, and it could have been. I don't recall. I remember this maybe is that I wasn't ready to qualify for Boston, but it might have been not too far from it, my original goals. But obviously, what a learning experience it was, though. So and you don't know until the day of you're going to respond and how you're going to be able to prepare. I think between you and I, we did everything that we could for a first time novice um, marathon runner. I think we did very, very well getting ready. I think the fitness was strong. I thought that it was overall quite good. I wish there wasn't. I won't do that much treadmill training again. I'll try to do a little bit more outside training. I think that was one of the big factors. But one of the things we had talked about was fueling and hydration, and so we had to introduce that part of the program or that part into the program because, as you know, the science indicate that you're going to run out of fuel after about 2 hours at the very most. So we needed to kind of focus on that a little bit, and we definitely was introduced to some ideas of fueling and and hydration and things that were the necessary carbs that were going to be important in that marathon. So I think it worked. It was okay. I think I don't think I practiced nearly hard enough on that part of it. And so when it came to the race itself, a number of things kind of happened all together that resulted in a 4:17 on that day. And so one of the things was I went out too fast. So I think my first half hour split was about an hour and 48 minutes, which was very, very fast. And that, I think we were targeting for around 155 or up within to 2 hours. And so I was clearly way too fast out. Secondly, I wasn't feeling properly. So I was having a hard time fueling and breaking down the snack that I was actually using that day. I wasn't using trying gels. I was just using some snacks. So that had a problem. Hydration. I wasn't drinking enough during the race, and so I was running out of. I was sweating way too much because it was, and even though it wasn't real hot that day, it was hot enough that I wasn't, because I wasn't used to the training outside and I wasn't used to the sun and the heat like that. So that had a definitely impact. I also made it hard on myself by running an extra kilometer. Ran into the park where there was nobody, and ended up doing an extra kilometer. So yeah, just because I like running 43 instead of 42 kilometers, so that was fun. Yeah, nobody that was there to sort of show me the right course. I was kind of lost. It was weird. Anyway, that happened. And then I also started having stomach cramps, and I had to have a bathroom break around maybe it was around 28 to 30 kilometer mark. So by then, my lofty goal of 3:45 was well out the window,
Hmm.
and I knew that that was out. And so I was like, okay, so what do I need? What do I just couldn't wrap my head of getting comfortable about in my own skin about what was happening. Then I started cramping with about 7 kilometers left. I never had leg cramps before, and so I'd have to stop and stretch a little bit. And so that last 7 kilometers that I wasn't mentally ready for, everything, all of that, all those wheels just fell off the bus. And
Hmm.
so and so yeah, I think in some ways it's a good thing, and you learn from those type of things. You learn from your own little bit of a disappointments. And I know, Matt, you're very encouraging and say you finished. You trained, you did it, you got through the finish line, and so that was very encouraging to hear. Than to have you support me that way. But in my own mind, honestly, I was disappointed, right?
Hmm.
So but there was a lot of lessons learned. I didn't beat myself up about it. I just said, you know what, I can do better. And I
Hmm.
kind of looked myself in the mirror and said, you know what, I looked at you, I looked in the mirror and said, let's do this better for the
Hmm.
next time.
So at that point, we have a few months, and you've completed the marathon, which was definitely one of your goals, but you weren't happy. We've all had that where, we finished it, but we don't really feel like we did ourselves justice. And obviously, the fueling and hydration thing was a big issue. So at that point, we brought Steph in to the equation. So listeners will know Stephanie Small from the last few weeks. We've had her on a couple of times, and I referred you to her to see if she might be able to help. And would you tell us a little bit about what you guys worked on, how that went?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I contacted her, I think it was around, I was going to say middle to end of June, somewhere in there. I had inquired based on the referral you had done, and made contact with her. And she got right off to the bat, right off the start. She set me up and started doing some diet reviews. She basically looked at what I was eating, when I was eating it, and how I was recording everything. I was basically logging all my intakes at the time. And so the first thing was really to get the diet flipped around a little bit. So I wasn't eating enough at the first part of the day, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
was eating probably wasn't I wasn't taking in enough carbs or calories, and I was probably having too high of fats at that time in my diet. So few structural changes to try to bring some more intake and at the beginning of the day, and increase my carb volume for the purposes of training and getting myself and introducing the right proteins too, I would say, for muscle rebuilding. So just getting that part all straightened away was the first step. And then the second step was really focusing on what we needed to do to make my race day successful. So introducing some new ideas with respect to some fruit snacks that are a little bit easier to chew and lighter on the stomach. Looked at some hydration things. Also, experimented with gels when needed to for the race. So, but the key messaging with that was make sure that I'm doing it all the time.
Mm.
Every time I go out running, whether it be half an hour, 45 minutes, or 2 hours or 3 hours, like make sure you're fueling yourself your 60 uh, grams of carbs every hour. So, but it doesn't matter even if it's not an hour run, I would still bring something so that I get used to the fact of having fueling during the running. So I think that was really important. Just that part of the discipline for bringing for my fueling strategy up. And then the last part of it was actually the carb loading and making sure that I was ready for the race, the last week of, and really setting a pretty strict diet for what that was going to look like, and just giving myself the best chance for my physical being to be ready for that day. So, even talked about bathroom usage and things like that really helped in being prepared for that day. And so those were the three key things, and and the hydration too. And so making sure that I was, hydrating every opportunity, using a fueling and coming up with a fueling strategy. So there was meal planning the week of, and then a fueling strategy and hydration strategy the day of. So just reviewing all of that information with her, and being able to execute when the day came, because I know that was where one of my weakness was with the
Mm.
previous marathon.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about, didn't we? That the biggest limiter right now is the fuel and hydration. So let's get an expert in to help with that, because your fitness wasn't what let you down in Woodies. It was your gut, right? So that was where we needed to focus, and I think you did a very good job that summer of focusing on the primary limiter, which is the fueling and hydration. It was outside of racing and training as well. It was the diet through the week needed some adjustments by the sounds of it that you made. And how
Correct.
did it
Yes.
all? How did it go? So you went to Edmonton for the marathon. So how did it go in the end?
So yeah, it was the race day. I did everything that I could do to be prepared for it. I will admit that the last 2 weeks I was having some anxiousness about how it was going to go, just because of the previous past history with that event. I obviously only had one experience and it didn't go very well, so I was very anxious about it. Nervous a little bit. I think nervous in a good way. But I did everything that week right up to and the day of to prepare into the morning of, and then hit the finish or the start line. And I think after we talked, Matt, we had this, what were the goals, what we were going to do to make sure it was a successful marathon. And I think we said that, pretty much, make sure that you try to keep your splits very close together in a couple minutes. And 4:05 might have been a reasonable time. I think we talked about. And then really importantly, that all of the fueling was done without any issues, and that hydration. So those are the three or four key goals of the marathon that would say that, I did a really good job that day. So I think we left off, and it was nice and it was a nice cool start because it had been so hot, which was really impacting our training as well. And so I think it was a little bit cooler that morning from what I remember compared to what it was. Certainly a lot cooler than what I was training for in the heat of the day. So that felt really good in itself.
Hmm.
So mentally, I was really feeling good about where things were at, and so I got off to a really good start. I kind of, I felt good. I made sure that I was fueling properly. I was hitting all the hydration stations, even when I wasn't thirsty. I was still hydrating. So all of those where I was executing, I was right on about the right time. I think we were talking 840, 850, 840 minute mile. I think, which was about 540. I think was our target time in kilometers. And so I was watching my split, and I was watching my kilometer splits as they come in, and I was really happy with where my energy was, my legs were. And then as soon as I hit the half marathon point, I think I clocked in at about 157, and like feeling really good still at that time. So I realized that, maybe 4 hours is a doable goal, and as long as I can keep this up, so keep on hydrating, keep on fueling, and I got to the point near the 30K mark where I was actually out of fuel. I actually put a couple of gel packs in my bag just in case I actually needed to pop them
Mm.
in the last little bit. So I actually added a little bit extra to my fuel quantity, and near the 30, I still had lots of. I felt like I had lots of gas in the tank still. I was still right where I wanted to be, just under that 4 hour mark, and then really when it started getting hard, so around the 33, 34 kilometer mark, I hammered the gel, and because I could start to feel my legs were starting to get starting to feel a little fatigued at that time, and really starting to fight. Then I got up to about kilometer 37 or 38, somewhere in there, and I popped another gel. I'm like, I'm going to do whatever it takes because I'm going to make sure that I finish this on my own terms and I don't stop. And after that, I had, those last couple kilometers where the legs were heavy, where the fitness, where I was tired, I was, really starting to gasp in the air. The oxygen was harder to seem to get. I fought through that last little bit and finished it, in my opinion, successfully at 3 hours and 55 minutes. So I was very happy. I met all my fuel goals and my times or my hydration strategy, and just overall felt just overall relief that I finished at that point, and yeah, it made it all worth the while. All the almost like 5 years of training, right? So
Mm.
it was a great feeling, and it was great to see you at the finish line too, Matt.
Yes, for the listeners, I was behind Mike. I was with you a little bit for a little while, but I knew you were gonna finish stronger than me, so I came in closer to 4:10, which I was a little disappointed about for myself. But as soon as I saw the whole race, I was waiting, right, because we'd ran together for a little while, and the whole race, I was thinking, God, I hope I don't see him at any point. I was just waiting to see you like walking along by the side of the road, holding your stomach or something, and I was like, just I don't want to see him. And then I got right to the end, and I saw you at the end. And my disappointment in my own race, right, because of it was the baby's fault, okay. um,
Absolutely, yeah, I hear
it just
that.
kind of went away as soon as you told me. I was so happy. So because obviously it had taken a long time for you to get back to even just to running, but never mind doing a marathon, and never mind overcoming the GI troubles, and then having such a good performance. You just put a lot of hard work into it. So I was really pleased for you.
Well, thank you. And I wouldn't, I would be first to say this was, a lot of team effort and coaching. Like if I never would have got in touch with you, I probably would still be broken with my Achilles injury, and then who knows where I'd be. So, I mean, it's been a great fit, and doing this the right way. I'm forever grateful.
Well, you're quite welcome, Mike. It's my pleasure. So what's next for you?
Well, right now I'm just kind of in the process of asking myself that very question, what is next? And I think one of the things is, we talked about is maybe setting some goals for next year, what that really looks like. Setting anything in the interim as far as goals, maybe potentially a fall race. Now, there's no marathons left in Alberta, but I could still do maybe a fun race, a fun half or something, or something along those lines, just to keep myself kind of somewhat motivated in the interim. But really focusing on my goal next year of next May, it will be my try to hit my goal of the Calgary Marathon, and certainly to best my 3:55. I think that's something that's I'm really going to push for. I don't know what that number is right now, but I think just getting the best time, and then probably again setting something for the fall again, probably another marathon for the fall. As long as I keep enjoying this and keep pushing myself, and really, I guess really importantly, enjoying the process. I think that
Hmm.
there's no reason why this will stop in the interim future.
Yeah, because your real reason is your long term physical and mental health, right? So that, like, everything else is steps on a journey, milestones on a journey. I mean, if you were,
Absolutely.
so if we wrap it up there, thank you for joining us. It was a very encouraging story, I think, for anyone who's having trouble with injuries or recurring injuries or just even GI issues or just struggling to hit, get through plateaus or maybe has had to quit running and is hoping to get back to it for whatever reason. Like if you were going to say someone who's in a situation where they're unhappy with what they're able to do right now, what would you say to them?
Well, go seek out the right advice. I think don't wait. Don't necessarily take um, how do I say this? Don't necessarily think about what you're going to do with respect to how you're going to deal with the doctor. I would say go out and look for, another opinion, somebody who specializes in sports injuries, and really just listen to yourself and your instincts. And then secondly, I would say is if you're motivated and you're willing to do the work, anything is attainable. It really
Hmm.
is. Work with the right person. Get somebody that's in your corner that kind of holds you accountable like a coach. It's worth it at the end of the day. And just believe in yourself. It
Hmm.
can be done.
Yeah, yeah, very, very encouraging. I think it's testimony to your own. I'm not sure what the right word is. Maybe tenacity or commitment. But you went to see your doctor. Yeah, 3 times. You weren't getting anywhere. No disrespect for the doctor. It's not his job to know how to treat Achilles tendinopathy, right? But then, then you found me, you work with me as a physio to get over your Achilles injury. Then you work with me as a coach to try and train you as well as you can be trained for the half and then the full. And then you're having GI issues, so you work with Steph, a registered dietitian. And, it's just that using people as a resource to help you, you're going to get where you want to go so much faster. And in all walks of life, it's one thing to, like I used to do my own taxes. And then 1 year I got an accountant and he saved me so much money and time. And it was ridiculous. And I was just like, why haven't I always done this? And it's a way of seeing things as you don't have to do everything on your own. You can get some help from people whose whole job is just to figure out what to do, right? Where your job is to be an accountant, right? So um, it's just getting that specialized help can be the difference between being able to run and not able to run, which is a big deal.
So I just wanted to give a special thanks to my support team that allowed me to get to and have been a big part of my journey. Wanted to give that recognition to my wife, Arlene, my kids, Megan, Aislinn, and Elizabeth, and to my coach, you, Matt, for believing in me, for instilling discipline into my training program, and just just giving me the faith and the belief that I can do this, and big part in my recovery, for both right from the get-go and right through my injury, and to my accomplishments through my last marathon results. And also wanted to give a special thanks to Stephanie, who also was a big part of my training in the terms of providing a diet that it was really needed to be fixed, and also just with the fueling and hydration strategy for the race day. So thanks for all of my support team, and that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I think I speak for everybody when we say it's been our pleasure.
uh, Thank you, Matt.
Well, Mike, thank you for joining us on the show. And we'll maybe bring you on next year and you can tell us how, the wheels completely came off in 2023. You had an absolute nightmare. Then we'll bring you on in 2024 when it's all going really well again. And we'll just keep doing these.
Yeah, let's hope the roller coaster doesn't continue, but absolutely be thrilled to be able to share my story again next year, my
All
journey
right.
this year. All
Thanks,
right.
Mike. I'm gonna stop the recording there.
Very good. Thank you.